She made the riskiest decision of her life and paid a price she never imagined. Rebekah was not a bad woman. She was a mother. She was a wife. She was a believer. But something happened within her that transformed love into favoritism and favoritism into betrayal. We are talking about Rebekah. She chose one child over the years, and it divided a family. One of the most moving and heartbreaking Bible stories you've ever heard. Because here, we're not talking about villains. We're talking about ordinary people, people who love, people who believe, people who make mistakes trying to do the right thing. And Rebekah did exactly that. She believed so much in God's promise that she decided to help him with her own hands. And the result? A broken home, a son on the run, another son in tears, and a mother who never saw the one she loved most again. This is a story about favoritism in the Bible, about imperfect motherhood, about faith mixed with fear, and about how our choices, even when well-intentioned, can generate family conflicts that last for generations. But there's something in this story that completely changes how you see God's promises in your own life. And you're going to discover that here. So take a deep breath, because this journey will hurt. It will move you, and it will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, write in the comments. God fulfills his promises, even when I fail. I read them all and respond to as many as I can. Let's go. It all started with a pain. Rebekah was pregnant, but something was wrong. Inside her, something was struggling. It wasn't the usual pain of pregnancy. It was something violent, something that frightened her. And she didn't understand what was happening. So she did what any woman of faith would do. She went to God and asked. The answer she received did not bring relief. It brought weight. God said, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples will be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. That was not just a prophecy about babies. It was the announcement of a family conflict in the Bible, which would begin even before the first cry. Rebekah treasured those words. She knew God had spoken, but did she understand what it truly meant? Did she realize that God wasn't asking for her help, but simply warning her of what he himself would do? Because what happened next shows that perhaps she heard the promise, but forgot who made it. When the twins were born, the difference was striking. The sun was still high that day. The tent was full of voices, movement, and expectation. And then Esau was born, red, hairy, strong. A boy who seemed born, ready for the desert. But something strange happened. Right behind him came another baby, and this baby held Esau's heel, as if he had been trying to overtake him from the womb. That was Jacob. 2 children, same house, same parents, but completely opposite paths. Esau grew up loving the outdoors. He was a hunter, an adventurer, the kind of man his father Isaac admired. When Esau returned from the hunt, he brought meat, he brought stories, he brought life. And Isaac loved that. He saw in his eldest son everything that he himself was not. Perhaps that is why he loved him so much. Jacob, on the other hand, was different. He preferred to stay close to home. He was quiet, observant. He liked to cook, to take care of things, to be near his mother. And Rebekah, well, Rebekah and Jacob, they had a connection that no one else understood. She saw something special in him, something that went beyond his personality. Something that had to do with that prophecy that God had given years ago. And that's when family division, biblical history, it began. Silently, subtly, but real. Isaac loved Esau. Rebekah loved Jacob. And no one realized that love was being divided instead of multiplied. Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when parents choose sides? Rebekah didn't hide it. She tried. But every look, every gesture, every conversation revealed the truth. Jacob was the son of her heart. While Isaac was captivated by Esau's prowess, Rebekah was captivated by Jacob's sensitivity. And this created something dangerous within that family. Favoritism in the Bible. It wasn't hate, it wasn't rejection, but it was a choice. and every choice excludes someone. Esau felt it. Even without words, he knew that to his mother he was second, and Jacob knew it too. He knew he was the favorite, and perhaps that fueled something in him that shouldn't exist, the idea that he deserved more, that he was better, that the blessing that belonged to the firstborn actually belonged to him. And Rebekah reinforced this, not with words, but with her presence, with attention, with complicity. She believed in God's promise. She believed that Jacob had a greater destiny, but at some point that belief turned into control, that faith turned into manipulation, and that motherhood in the Bible, what was supposed to protect, began to destroy. Because when you choose one child over another, you're not just loving one, you're hurting both. One grows up rejected, the other grows up with a responsibility they shouldn't have to carry. And both grow up believing that love is conditional. Rebekah loved Jacob, but did she know the price everyone would pay for that love? Rebekah believed, but she was also afraid. She knew the promise. The older will serve the younger. God had said so. So why did Isaac still treat Esau as his heir? Why did Esau still have the birthright? Why was the blessing still destined for him? These questions began to erode Rebekah's peace, and the more time passed, the more she felt she needed to act. Not because she doubted God, but because she doubted that God would do it without her help. You know when you believe in the promise, but don't trust God's timing? You know when you believe in the miracle, but think you need to force the door open? That was exactly it. Rebekah was experiencing the dilemma faced by every person of faith, to wait or to act, to trust or to intervene, and she chose to intervene, not with malice, not with envy, but with fear disguised as faith, and that's dangerous. Because when fear takes over even the Rebekah's decisions in the Bible, what seems spiritual becomes carnal. She looked at Jacob and thought, he's the chosen one. I need to make sure of that. She looked at Isaac growing old and thought, time is running out. I need to do something. And it was in that place, between faith and fear, that the riskiest plan of her life was born. Oh, and if you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because there's still a lot more to come, and you won't want to miss it. The question is, how far would you go to protect God's promise? Isaac was old, almost blind, and he felt death approaching. Then he called Esau. Son, prepare my favorite food, bring me game, and when you return, I will give you my blessing. The blessing. That blessing that wasn't just words, it was inheritance, it was authority, it was the future, and it was irreversible. Rebekah heard everything, and her heart raced. She knew that if Esau received that blessing, God's promise would be, at least in her eyes, lost. So she went to Jacob and proposed something unimaginable. Your father will bless Esau, but we can change that. Put on his clothes, cover your arms with goatskin, take the food I will prepare, and receive the blessing in his place. Jacob hesitated, not for moral reasons, but for fear of being discovered. What if my father touches me? He'll notice, and instead of a blessing, I'll receive a curse. But Rebekah was firm, determined, almost desperate. If there is a curse, let it fall on me. Just obey. And Jacob obeyed. Because Jacob and Rebekah's deception, he wasn't born to a manipulative son. He was born to a mother who believed she was fulfilling God's plan. He was born to someone who confused faith with control. He was born to someone who thought God needed help. But does God need our lies to fulfill his promises? Jacob entered the tent. His heart was pounding. Isaac lay there, blind, frail, but still with that patriarchal authority. Who are you, my son? Jacob lied. I am Esau, your firstborn. Isaac was puzzled. The voice didn't sound right. Then he asked, come closer. Let me touch you. Jacob approached. His hands trembled. His arms were covered with goatskin, and Isaac touched him. The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. He still doubted, but hunger, old age, and the desire to bless his son overcame his distrust, and he blessed Jacob. May God give you of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. May people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Genesis 27, 28, 29. That's it. It was done. The stolen blessing in the Bible, it had been sealed, and there was no going back. Jacob left there changed. He had succeeded. He had the blessing. But he also had something else: guilt, fear, and the certainty that it would come at a price. Because lies may win human blessings, but they never bring peace. And Jacob was about to find that out the hard way. But wait, because the worst was yet to come. Esau returned from the hunt euphoric. He had caught the best animal. He prepared the food with care. He took it to his father with the pride of a son wanting to please. "Father, get up, eat some of my game, and give me your blessing." Isaac was confused. "Who are you?" Esau laughed, not understanding. "It's me, father, Esau, your firstborn." And in that second, Isaac's world collapsed. He began to tremble violently. Then, "Who brought me game before you? I ate and blessed him, and he will be blessed." Esau understood everything, and the cry that came from him was not of anger. It was of pure pain. "Bless me too, my father, bless me too," he pleaded. He wept. He clung to his father. But Isaac, with a broken voice, said, "Your brother came with deceit and took your blessing." Esau couldn't believe it. He, who had always been loyal, he, who had honored his father, he, who had done everything right, he had lost everything to his brother who had done everything wrong. And it wasn't just about inheritance, it was about identity, about worth, about being loved. Esau lost the blessing, but he lost much more than that. He lost his place. And Rebekah, she heard that cry from afar. And for the first time, perhaps she wondered, "What have I done?" But it was too late. The family conflict in the Bible, it had exploded, and there was no fixing it. Esau swore revenge. "My father will die soon, and when that happens, I will kill Jacob." It wasn't an empty threat, it was a promise. The pain had turned to hatred. Her brother had become her enemy, and Rebekah knew that if Jacob stayed there, he would die. So she went to him and said, "Run away. Go to my brother Laban's house. Stay there until your brother's anger subsides. I will send for you when it is safe." Jacob agreed, because there was no choice. But Rebekah did that believing it would be temporary. A few weeks, a few months. Soon everything would return to normal. But he didn't come back. Jacob fled that night, and Rebekah stood there at the tent door, watching the son she loved most disappear into the darkness. She didn't know it, but that would be the last time she would see him. Because Jacob never returned while she was alive. Family division, biblical history. It's over. Rebekah lost both her children, one to emotional death, the other to physical distance. She had fought so hard for God's promise, but in the end, she was alone, without Jacob, without Esau's peace, without family unity, and the house that was once full of life was now a tomb of silence and regret. Was it worth it? Rebekah was not a villain. She was human, deeply human. She didn't deceive Isaac because she hated Esau. She did it because she loved Jacob and because she believed she was upholding God's will. But in the process, she forgot something fundamental. God doesn't need our sins to fulfill his plans. The Bible doesn't hide Rebekah's mistakes, and that's important because she is part of the women of the Bible and their mistakes, which teach us as much as her successes. She shows us that faith and failure can coexist, that you can love God and still make terrible decisions, that good intentions do not justify wrong means. Rebekah teaches that favoritism destroys, that controlling is different from trusting, that overprotecting is actually harmful, and that sometimes the greatest demonstration of faith is not acting, but waiting. She also teaches us about the consequences of choices in the Bible, because Rebekah not only lost Jacob, she lost her peace. She lost her relationship with Esau. She lost Isaac's respect, and she carried the weight of a decision that could not be undone until the end of her life. But even so, Rebekah's story doesn't end in condemnation. It ends in redemption, because God even used her mistake to fulfill his purpose. And that changes everything. Jacob fled, but God found him. In the middle of the desert, alone, afraid, and guilty, Jacob had a dream. He saw a ladder connecting earth to heaven, and God said, "I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. The land where you are lying I will give to you and your descendants, and all the families of the earth will be blessed through you." The promise that God had given to Rebekah years ago was being fulfilled, but not because she lied, not because Jacob deceived her, but because God had decided. From the beginning, Jacob, chosen by God, he was not chosen on merit. He was chosen by grace, and nothing Rebekah did or failed to do would change that. But be warned, this doesn't mean her actions were without consequences. They were, and they were painful. Jacob spent 20 years away from home. He was deceived in the same way he deceived. He suffered, he struggled, and when he finally returned, Rebekah was no longer alive. The price was high, real, permanent, but God fulfilled it. Because that is the nature of God. He doesn't depend on our perfection. He doesn't expect us to do everything right. He works despite us, through us, and even through our mistakes. And that's not a license to sin. It's relief for sinners. So what have we learned from the biblical story of Rebekah? That God is greater than our mistakes, that his promises never fail, even when we fail, and that the consequences of choices in the Bible, they remind us that freedom does not mean the absence of responsibility. Rebekah teaches us that true faith trusts. It doesn't control. It waits. It doesn't force. It rests. It doesn't manipulate. And in the end, God fulfills his promises. Even so, look, I don't know in what area of your life you are trying to help God right now. I don't know if it's a relationship you want to force, a child you want to control, a promise you're trying to rush. But Rebekah's story tells you one thing. God fulfills his promises even when you fail. But you don't need to lie for that to happen. You don't need to manipulate. You don't need to destroy a family to fulfill a calling. Because God's plan doesn't depend on your perfection, it depends on his faithfulness, and that changes everything. The great lesson of Rebekah is not just in her mistake, it's in grace. God used Jacob, God fulfilled the promise, but the path could have been different, less painful, less destructive, if she had trusted instead of trying to control. So today, I want you to do something. Surrender control. Let go of what you're trying to force. Trust that God doesn't need your lies, your manipulations, your shortcuts. He is God, and he fulfills his promises, always. If this story touched you, write in the comments, "God fulfills his promises, even when I fail." I read them all. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because there's something new every week. Bible stories with profound lessons that will transform the way you see the Bible and your own life. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, because there are many people trying to force promises when they should be trusting in the God of promises. And remember, Rebekah chose a son, she divided a family, and she paid the price. But God didn't give up on her. He didn't give up on Jacob. He didn't give up on Esau. And he won't give up on you. God's promise is fulfilled, even when we mess everything up, because his faithfulness is greater than our failings.